I sent Ramananda just to kind of like, yay, looking forward to it. I sent him loads of tree puns, but Ramananda, I'll confess, I Googled them.
Oh, did you? I thought you.
Yeah,
They were good.
I did. I'll share them now.
Yeah, please. That was like, you know, kind of combo. Like that was funny. Oh, that was funnier, and then it ended in a.
I know. There were 3. The rule of 3. Looking forward to tonight. Going to be a treat. I'm full of intrigue.
That was good.
I'm sure it'll be tremendous.
You left me with none to come back with. Although I didn't check Google, so anyway.
There's not many other. Yeah, those are the best.
I didn't twig that.
Oh, is there no end to this?
Love it.
Oh, can I think of one? Leave me alone.
You're unbelievable.
Oh, that was good. I just got it. Yeah. Jagat looks like he's got a few brewing there. Okay, I think we should call it. It's not. To be honest, this isn't going to take long. But yeah, I'll start now. So actually, I'm not going to give a presentation today. It's kind of what you call like an anti-presentation or something. So the idea is the topic of conversation is like I think the title of the talk is More Tolerant Than a Tree, and I realized that I don't know. I'm not a specialist in this subject area. I'm not very tolerant. So actually, I decided to ask a friend to give the talk today. He's a bit shy, so what's going to happen is I'm just going to turn the camera off and get him kind of accustomed, and then he'll join. And then at the end of once he's given his spiel, the camera will go off again, and unfortunately, I'll be back. So yeah, you're all on mute, so that's good. But he's a bit shy, that's why I asked you if you could go on mute. So I'll put the camera on in a moment, and I'll turn myself on mute as well. Problem is, I can see you laughing. How can I get rid of your faces? Oh. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Tweet, 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 tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet. Woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Oh, oh. Woof, woof. Woof, 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 woof. Woof. Ah. Oh. Oh. God, God, God. Ah. Ooh. 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 Bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, no. Oh. 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 Bang, bang. Bang, bang. Oh, God. Bang, 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 bang. Oh. Oh. Ah. Ah. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, my dear treenard. Oh, I'm coming to you today because I'm so fallen. I bow down at your lotus roots because my spiritual teacher and the teacher of all of the worlds, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself, Lord Krishna, he came 500 and something years ago to teach me how to be a devotee. And he gave us such a wonderful gift. And I just sang the gift that he gave, which is the Hare Krishna mantra. And it said that this mantra, if chanted purely, can deliver us from all the sufferings. And I am suffering, my dear tree. I might sound jolly when I'm singing, but most of the time I'm criticizing someone or moaning about something. And he says something else. Lord Chaitanya says, Trinadapi Sunichana, Tarodapi Suhishnana, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. And basically what he's saying is that to be able to chant his names properly, I need to be in a humble state of mind, more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass. And I pray to you fervently, my friend, my brother, you are the embodiment of tolerance. You can tolerate anything. You're here all day with the wind. I don't know what you think about the dogs peeing on you. Even the woodpeckers, they're really giving you a hard time, but you just stand there strong and you're my inspiration. And Lord Chaitanya says I should take my lesson from you. And please, I pray to you, help me to become a devotee. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Oh. Who does this human think he is, calling me tolerant? I'm so angry. I'm so angry. What did he say? Krishna. Is that who you're called? Krishna. Krishna's God. Well, no one else can hear me. For the first 10 years of my life, I used to love talking. I would talk and talk and talk. And then I realized no one can hear me. No one can hear me. I'm talking and no one can hear me. And I'm telling these dogs, I'm saying, stop peeing on me. It's disgusting. They don't listen. Is it that they can't hear me, or they're just not listening? Tell me, my Lord, tell me. Now I know who you are. Krishna, eh? You made me like this, and I'm really angry. I'm angry because I'm stuck in this body, in this tree body, and I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck, completely trapped, and it's your fault. It's all your fault. But I do feel a little bit better talking to you. So maybe you can hear me, I don't know. I haven't heard you say anything. Wow. Let me tell you a few of my confessions, my dear Lord. Most people don't know this. They look at my roots, and sometimes they see that one of my roots is above the ground. And they think, oh, what's happening to that root? Why is it above the ground? But what they don't realize is that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get my root above the ground. Because one day, my Lord, one of these dogs, when it comes along, I'm going to get my root and I'm going to slap it around the face. That's what I want to do. That's how tolerant I am. See, I'm so tolerant. These stupid humans. Oh my goodness. And this mushroom, I can't get rid of it. It's stuck on my arm. Oh. And the ants. The ants. They're on my skin all the time. It's so itchy, my Lord. Why can't I just get a bit of peace? Just a little bit. And I love Robin. I love the Robin. He's so nice. But he's the only solace. The parrots come. Oh, the parrots. Squeak, squeak, squeak. And that's all they say. They're so monosyllabic. Is that the word? Whatever it is, that's what they are. They're so annoying. And the woodpecker doesn't even realize, this is my head. You're banging on my head. Bang, bang, bang. How would you feel if I bang on your head for 50 years? I just want a bit of respect, my Lord. But maybe you respect me. And these ecologists, I think that's what they call them. Oh, these humans, they're so stupid. They come along and they look at my skin. They start touching me all over with all these instruments. And they look at these little cracks in my skin and they say, oh, look at the orthogonal angle and the hypotenuse. Isn't it interesting? Look at the diameter and the circumference. If we measure the x squared to the y, we'll be able to calculate the n times t to the b. And I just laugh. I laugh. I said, what are you talking about? These cracks in my skin are due to my high sap pressure. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. I'm about to burst. And these little cracks are appearing. That's not some scientific phenomenon. I just got high sap pressure. I need to go on some statins. These silly humans. I don't know. But I have to say, my Lord, I do feel better. I do feel better talking to you. I don't know who you are. You think you're called Krishna. But I feel quite happy. So maybe I can tolerate. Maybe this human has given me the answer. He's given me the answer I can tolerate. All I need to do is speak to you. I don't need to hold it all in anymore. Thank you, human. Thank you, my Lord. Woof, woof. Woof, 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 woof. Get lost. Okay, sorry about that, my Lord. Maybe I'm not as tolerant as I thought I was, but I'm learning, and yeah, that's just one strike. Just think about it, my Lord. Think about it. I get peed on 10 times a day. 10 times. I'm not a tree, so my maths isn't very good. But 10 times 365 is almost 4,000 times a year. 4,000 times I get peed on a year by all sorts of dogs, and they're all competing with each other. Who's can pee the highest? 4,000 times 50 is 200,000. I've been peed on for 200,000 times, my Lord. Don't I deserve to slap a dog once? Just once. Krishna, I'll try not to do it again. But at least I know I can talk to you now. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Tolerance, eh? Very interesting. I didn't even know I knew what these words meant. Hare Krishna. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Good night, my dear Lord. It's bedtime for me. Thank you for listening to my woes. Hare Krishna. So Treenard's gone to sleep, and you're stuck with me now. It's much less interesting. That's it. That's a lot less time than I thought, so we might get away early today.
I mean, what a guy.
That was the most fun I've had in a long time, Ramananda. And I can't even tell.
It could be madness. It's not transcendental madness, I can guarantee you that. But it could be the other form of madness. The one thing I didn't account for was I thought I would just see my screen, and so it would be okay. But because I could see everyone and I could see people's faces, it was really, really difficult. So I'll have to factor that in next time. But next time I want mood lighting. I want to get the kind of night and day going, get the whole puppet crew in.
I mean,
thanks for tolerating me.
No,
I felt like I related to that tree. I feel like that. I felt a kinship with that tree, Ramananda. Weirdly.
I think you have a future in this.
Puppeteering.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
everybody else is famous.
You know, in the early days of the movement, Vishnu John Maharaj, you did every week did puppet shows. You know, kind of, yeah, he did puppet shows dramatizing the different pastimes, and then Borijan and Gita Nagari used to do these elaborate puppet shows. People love
I
them.
didn't know.
Come on, this is a great method of preaching.
So it means you're not barking up the wrong tree.
Oh, I've been thinking about this for weeks. It's been on my mind. I'm so glad it's kind of I'm done. But with your blessings, maybe I can invest in a whole host of puppets and bring them bring the puppets to town.
But can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jagat.
On so the tree is not tolerant.
He learned to be how to be
Or
tolerant.
this specific guy, or there are different type of trees. This specific tree, this one, is not tolerant. He just has no choice. He's just he can't. He's like in a straitjacket, and he can't. He can't. He has no choice. It's like a torture. It's like a. He's kind of being tied up somewhere and tortured. He has no choice. So
yes, exactly,
he's not really tolerant. He has no. You see, what's the
situation? No choice.
What's the situation?
I just want to say, I thought that was.
I had the conception that trees are. I had this misconception. I just realized when he showed this. Actually, he showed me. It taught me a lot because it exposed all my maybe the misconception or preconceived idea that because be more taller than a tree, that people, for example, pee on trees and the tree in there is thinking, oh yes, please. I don't mind you peeing on me. This is my constitutional position to be peed upon. Therefore, it's fine. Please help yourself. I thought trees taught that. That's why they're glorified by Lord Chaitanya.
Maybe they do. I don't know.
It doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, this tree wasn't. No.
Especially with this guy here.
I thought that was really interesting, Ramananda, because the way you drew out that character of the tree, this idea, I feel like it touched on this really subtle but prevalent idea that a lot of us come across one way, but there's a lot going on inside, especially in devotee communities. People might, in my case, for example, people might see me in a particular light, and then you have to grapple with this thing where you're torn because they might, from your perspective, you don't see yourself like that. And you might think, well, you have the authority here because you are you. You ought to know who you are. And, but at the same time, I don't know, there's something that really resonated with me with that guy.
Treenard.
I'll get you one for Christmas.
I see Rupa Vilas Prabhu has his hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the fact that Lord Chaitanya gives the example of the tree representing tolerance. So we have to think a little bit more about that. What I was thinking is the tree has no choice but to be tolerant, whether it wants to be tolerant or not, because of the circumstances of his previous, because of the circumstances of that jiva's previous choices. He's been placed in a position where he has very little free will, practically nothing. What other choice does he have? In fact, there's a line from this old pop song, "Rejoice, rejoice, you have no choice but to carry on." So, that's the tree's position. I mean, what can the tree do about the situation? That people are cutting his limbs, people are even cutting him down. He's giving shelter, to the sages. And, we know that he used to give, the sages used to live under trees because they're slightly warmer, especially banyan trees, slightly warmer the year round. But from the tree's point of view, I think that was the cool thing about this, that it's kind of like saying, if the tree could speak, what would it say? And I think that's exactly what it would say. I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. But what can they do? And so actually, that's also our position. Although we're not trees, at the same time, we're often in circumstances where there's nothing we can do about what's happening to us in the world. So other than reaching out to Krishna and saying, please help me, please deliver me from this, what choice do we have? What else can we do ultimately? I just thought it was great though to have it come from the tree itself. It was a great idea. I really loved it.
Thank you. Trying to think of
Reshma wants to say something.
what's his mouth?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Reshma.
No, go on.
No, I was just thinking something silly.
I mean, no wonder he's shy. I mean, so ugly, my God.
Don't, he'll never come back again if you say that.
How, I mean,
his eyes move as well, by the way. It's just very difficult to maneuver them.
No, I
And then
think
he looks really weird.
great. I mean, he was very expressive, really. And it was so interesting. I guess, I hope I'm not repeating what Jagat Palana and Prabhupada just said, but as they were speaking, it was so interesting to see the shift in Treenard's little monologue, because he was kind of assessing his situation and realizing that it's miserable, that he's miserable. And okay, there may be, little glimpses of relief, little Robin, and, there may be like temporary comforts or, a little bit of relief, but overall the situation is just awful. And it seemed that having assessed that allowed him to come to a point of acceptance. This is what these are the cards I've been dealt with. And like Rupa Velasquez was saying, this is because of our karma, or I guess also because of the fact that we're in the material world, a place where, we aren't actually going to feel the happiness that we actually want, because we're like a fish out of water. And so when after that assessment and then the acceptance, there seemed to be a point of just kind of surrender, I guess. And that didn't necessarily manifest in like, a perfect idea of, okay, this is it, and I've accepted everything and I'm tolerating everything. And it was just this gradual sense of, okay, I want to tolerate my circumstances. And the first step in doing that is recognizing that, Krishna, you are there. It was like this, and I could feel it, like as Treenard was speaking, I could feel it. I could feel that shift, and I almost felt like this sense of relief myself, because when you hear someone talking about how difficult things are, you also start to feel that a bit like a sponge, and then like, oh yeah, like there is hope. So I loved that progression. It was great.
Thank you for bringing that out, Reshma. I just on that, a few things I hadn't really consciously properly thought of, what you were just saying there, what you've all said. But the idea of acceptance, I think, is one that really strikes me. And just still he made mistakes, or he acted maybe in a way which he wasn't so pleased with, kicked the dog eventually. But yeah, he knew, okay, I turned to Krishna.
I was just thinking of an incident, and I can't remember all the details of it, but it was an interesting, in terms of tolerance. Prabhupada and his servant were on some airplane flight, and I think it was coming from Australia. And there was a drunken football team in the same area of the plane. and they were like smoking and drinking and, you know, just carrying on in an outrageous way. And finally, Prabhupada's servant went over to the stewardess and said, "Come on, this is ridiculous. And all my spiritual master is being subjected to all this nonsense. And they're not even supposed to be doing these things. Can't you do something?" And so she said, okay. So she went over and spoke to the football team. And then she went away. And then they went right back to it again, all this kind of yelling and drinking and carrying on. And the servant was ready to go and talk to her again. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, we must be tolerant. So in other words, it was a situation that wasn't going to change no matter what pleas were being made. So in other words, he was saying that sometimes that's our only response. That's the only response we've got. And if we don't show that tolerance, then people think, well, you're just like anybody else then. You're just as fallen as the rest of us. You're just as useless as the rest of us then. But to show tolerance in spite of a difficult situation, that impresses people sometimes. You know, it shows a kind of patience, a kind of virtue.
This reminded me of a story that I heard many times actually when I was in Mayapur. Because in Mayapur, there is the problem of the neighbor. Sometimes from the thing they make festivals and you hear a lot of noises. Sometimes there are noises. And they read the story that this happens also while Prabhupada was there in Mayapur, that they put these very loud speakers with whatever music and something like that. They were commenting in front of Prabhupada, look at the, you know, there's so much noise, what to do. And Prabhupada said, blast them back. So that's another, so again, Prabhupada reacted differently in different circumstances. We always remember that. In that situation, Prabhupada's suggestion was blast them back and just turn up the volume. Which for me is very interesting. For me, very interesting. You're recalling this episode with Prabhupada and these other things and all the other things, because Prabhupada, even in that sense, was unique. If you agree with me, it wasn't the typical stereotypical Hindu tolerant, which is very important for them. For them is very, I mean, for Indians is absolutely, if you show any sign of anger, for them is like, that's it. You're not a sadhu. That's it. You have no, you know, that's it. You're done. Any sign, if you show any emotion, you're not a sadhu. Period. Actually, I remember, Prabhupada, please correct me if I'm wrong, that sometimes Prabhupada in this pandal, famous pandal he was doing when he was traveling in India, sometimes people say some nonsense, Prabhupada just blast them, and many Indians walked away. They just walked away. So, and we have, again, with everything else practically, we have the luxury of playing everything. Now today we're talking about tolerance against the perfect example of everything, including tolerance, which is Prabhupada. And sometimes Prabhupada tolerance is counterintuitive, because Prabhupada many times was not tolerant. You cannot be described, at least from the external psychosomatic symptom, Prabhupada was not tolerant. Would get very angry, very fiery, and so on and so forth. Also was very peaceful. That's also there. But also both sides were, you know, according to scientific circumstances, were manifested. So it's very significant, because you need to think, you know, a little bit out of the box, or out of the stereotypical, whether Western understanding of tolerance is in a Christian. I think the Western way of tolerance is informed by our Christian upbringing, which is whether you're religious or not religious, we are culturally Christians, all of us. Even Richard Dawkins, I remember we were talking last time about Richard Dawkins in this conference in Oxford. You know, we were talking about, they had this conference in Oxford with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the famous philosopher. And actually Richard Dawkins which is maybe the biggest anti-Christian outspoken person. He said, you know, this morning in the shower, before coming before coming to this program in the shower, I was singing one of those the Lord's Praise, you know, these Anglican songs that they do. I was singing one of these songs under the shower. That's I mean, even if you're joking, culture is a Christian. So we have this Christian understanding of what tolerance means, turning the other cheek and all this stuff. And then this Indian, on the other side, from the Indian Vedic tradition, the Indian way they understand tolerance, which is very, very much what this seems to me very connected to a very because of the impersonal, you know, contamination. That's the way I see it. It's devoid of emotion. Basically, you're flat. They're very flat. There's no emotion. This Indian side of the main thing they showed, which is a bit scary to me, they're completely flat. There's no, that's they understand, you know, being equipoise and stuff. But Prabhupada, you know, it's definitely out of those two boxes as far as I saw it.
Thank you, Jagat. Rudulas?
Yeah, well, it's a great point. I think, though, of course, we feel that Prabhupada was ultimately very tolerant, considering the circumstances he had to put up with, even in just dealing with us as his disciples. He had to have tremendous tolerance in order to handle all that. But I think you're quite correct. We shouldn't have a stereotypical idea of what tolerance is, because he also responded to situations creatively and sometimes in a very unexpected way. And because, you know, that whole thing about yayatamam prapatinte, that as they approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. So he would assess the situation, and sometimes he would be very tolerant in the usual sense, as you say, and that the usual idea of the word, even whether from a Christian or a Hindu, but, you know, sort of mentality. But other times he would see it as an opportunity to get a deep philosophical point through. You know, for instance, Bhaktivedanta was criticized. Prabhupada's guru was criticized for what they call the chopping technique. That he was very severe with the people, especially Mayavadis. He would be very severe with them, and he said sometimes his disciples. Prabhupada remarks like this, and I don't remember what was a lecture in one of his purports. But his response was, he said that Bhaktisiddhanta would use this chopping technique, and some of his disciples even criticized that it was too heavy, too brusque. And he said, but those who criticized him fell down. So in other words, we don't necessarily understand why a great Vaishnava is behaving in a certain way in a certain situation. You know, someone will say, oh, you weren't tolerant, or you were too tolerant, or you were, you know, someone might criticize it, not understanding his vision, his outlook. You know, it would be impossible to fully grasp why a great soul behaves in the way they do, because, you know, we're not on the transcendental platform. When you're on the transcendental platform, then you see things in a clear, with a kind of clarity that we don't presently possess. And that's just, sorry.
Yeah, and we have another thing, if I can add to that, that we are recommended by scripture. By scripture, there are other passages in scripture which are recommended that certain things, a sadhu, a brahmana, should not tolerate. We are openly recommended not to tolerate certain things. And if you tolerate, if you seem to be tolerating certain things, it's a symptom on the mode of ignorance, if you agree with me with this reading.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you. And I think also, you know, just like when another devotee is attacked or criticized, we're expected to not defend ourselves, but to defend him to the last breath, or him or her. Yeah, we're not expected always to be tolerant. Prabhupada talks about becoming like fire against an offender, someone who's said something offensive or done something obnoxious. So yeah, it has a very time, place, and circumstance sort of feel to it, doesn't it?
It feels like
Reminds me.
it feels like, oh, sorry, Ramananda.
No, please, you go, Sankarsana.
I was just saying, it feels like listening to the comments that you were making there, both of you. It feels like there's something, tolerance has to be seen in the light of, without wanting to sound too cliche, but like having Krishna in the center in some way. So if something is going to somehow have a negative effect on some sort of Krishna conscious activity or objective, then you object, you don't tolerate. And if something doesn't really have any ramifications externally, but it's just something affecting you personally, like Prabhupada on the plane probably, he wasn't that bothered because it wasn't affecting Krishna consciousness, his spreading of Krishna consciousness or other devotees. So it feels like tolerance, if I'm getting what you're both saying, it feels like tolerance has to do with promoting Krishna, keeping Krishna in the center and honoring Krishna and his devotees and distributing Krishna. So tolerant, it's almost like in the Gita, where I think there was a discussion in one of his purports about what non-violence means. And non-violence doesn't necessarily mean to not fight. You could be non-violent. Like Arjun's fighting, you wouldn't have said that he was just plainly acting in a violent way. He was upholding Dharma by doing that. So there seems to be a much more sophisticated understanding of what these virtues are, which I really liked.
I think that you really again pointed exactly to the reference point. The way they say the tolerance does not stand on its own as a an isolated concept for the devotee. Tolerance is in relation to Krishna. So you play everything against Krishna service and things related to Krishna, like Krishna's devotee. So maybe for us, is if it helps, maybe we should qualify tolerance and maybe call it Krishna tolerant. The devotee should be Krishna tolerant in the sense that we are tolerant in relation to Krishna. Or if maybe there's a better word, or Chaitanya, since we're talking about Lord Chaitanya's verse, Chaitanya tolerant. Tolerant in the way that, or Prabhupada tolerant, or because I think it would help, because it would help us understand more focus, what does it mean for a devotee to be tolerant?
Thank you, Prabhu. That was really helpful. And Ramananda, I know you had something to say, and I also, just to let flag that I think Ananda Lila has a hand raised.
Yes, please, Ananda Lila.
Were you not first, Ramananda? No? Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, I was just going to mention, I'm sorry, my connection got cut off and then I came back and it was sort of already ongoing, this part of the conversation, but it reminded me of a class that I was listening to. I was there actually, it was in New Vrindavan, and this well-known sannyasi was giving a Bhagavatam class, and somehow he managed to give a whole class on tolerance, but he was sort of like insinuating that devotees should put their full trust on the GBC and be tolerant of basically anything. So a devotee asked a question about tolerating abusive relationships. So what should a devotee do in those circumstances? And he made the mistake of saying that, yes, a woman should tolerate, and he was of Indian body. So, I guess most people probably weren't surprised. But immediately Malati, who's a senior disciple, Prabhupada, she immediately raised her hand, thank God. And she said, no. She said, that's not acceptable. And she said that Prabhupada himself had said that you know, if someone finds themselves in the midst of an abusive relationship, being that marriage or whatever it is, you should do whatever you can to get away from it. So yeah, and anyway, that went on for a while, like the whole conversation, but I thought it was really important to, sorry. It was really important that happened. And every time this subject comes up, like I mentioned that story because I feel like this, you know, tolerating anything, you know, for the sake of being a good devotee, you know, you can take it, and then you have all kinds of, you know, abuse going on, and the person, you know, is instructed to just take it. And yeah, I think that at this time and age, we should correct those things and make sure that nobody, you know, misunderstand that instruction.
Thanks for that, Ananda Lila. Actually, I think it links to how, at least I'll present how I've been considering the concept of tolerance. I haven't been considering it as an activity that I will do once someone does something to me, for example. I see that as a separate thing, and I see tolerance as my relationship with Krishna, my conversation with Krishna about what's actually happening. And then the activity that comes, I don't entirely know what that's going to be. And I just wondered what you thought about that.
Yeah,
I saw Sharabahari's hand earlier. Was that right?
Yeah, forgive me, because I don't think it's more relevant to what Ananda Lila said, and I don't want to interrupt Ramananda's flow. But I just heard what she said, and actually, it's not just a women thing. Jayad Vaid Maharaj, who's all known as a very kind of staunch sannyasi, and he was giving a class, and I was there personally, and he was saying, and this question came up about how much we tolerate in a bad relationship. And he was saying, you try your best, but you don't be stupid. You don't, I just said it like that, you don't be stupid. You don't have to tolerate, you know, when it use your common sense, no one should tolerate abuse, you know. So that was just what I heard. So it's not just, you know, some people think it's a woman complaining thing, but he's just like right on the nail. You don't have to tolerate that. Don't be stupid. That's all. Sorry, Ramananda. Carry on with your flow.
No, thank you for expanding on that. I that was, it's open, so open mic night.
So you were saying that, could you just repeat what you said, how what your view on tolerance, you expressed it and then you sort of raised the question, but I didn't, do you mind repeating it?
Yes, I guess what I'm wondering, at least the way I'm considering it to myself, is I consider tolerance as very much an internal thing. So it's like, okay, things are happening and I'm having a conversation with myself, with Krishna, I'm trying to kind of express that. But what I then do as an activity in response is almost, in my mind, a kind of separate thing that I'm not sure, because there seem to be two things, internal and external, and I'm not sure if I put them both under the name of tolerance. Maybe tolerance for me is an internal thing, and then the activity that I carry out is perhaps a request I make to myself to be to be fulfilling mine and my own needs and maybe those of others. Reshma?
No, I have to admit, I couldn't follow that.
Yeah, I need to break it down there. I think Reshma was very articulate and she understood, so please
Yeah,
make it clear.
I think I got it. You can correct me, Rama, but I think it was the difference between a state of mind, you know, wanting to be tolerant, internally feeling that way, and then that being separate from the action that may follow from that. And is that right, Rama? Just like there's a distinction between them. And actually, I was going to say this because in the verse, I'm paraphrasing, someone can correct me if I'm way off, but in the verse that you based this talk on, and I think Treenard recited it, treenad sunicena, one should think of oneself more tolerant than a tree and devoid of all sense of false prestige. And then interestingly, in the last half of the verse, Lord Chaitanya says, and in such a humble state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And so that seems to suggest that this tolerance and this mood is internal. It's a state of mind. And the measure of that, I guess you could say, or maybe I don't know if my analysis is correct here, but I guess one measure of that is whether you are able to chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, or, you know, attentively, you are able to connect to that practice of your spiritual life. And so bringing all that together, and I guess what you were all saying, that state of mind of being tolerant doesn't mean that, so having that internal state of mind and being grounded in that, and therefore spiritually strong, it may be that your actions externally may not look tolerant, as you, Jagat Palana, was saying, but actually, because it's coming from that grounding, your entire approach is in the name of tolerance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. So someone might, you know, it's like that verse where, I don't know if it's a verse, but it's like that saying where it's one who is not a Vaishnava may not be able to understand the activities of a Vaishnava, because externally they may look in a certain way. It may look like material activities, but actually internally there's a completely different motivation and state of mind, as you said. So I suppose that goes for things like tolerance, where internally you may be completely grounded, as you said, peaceful in a state of mind, accepting and satisfied, but you may act very strongly, and you may even act, you know, I mean, in the good sense of aggressive. You may oppose something vehemently, like Bhaktivedanta. I think it was someone was talking about Bhaktivedanta, like the way he was against opposing philosophies, but you wouldn't say he was intolerant. I'm sure he had a completely ideal state of mind in Krishna consciousness. So I think that's what I got from what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me? Yeah, I mean, we take it, at least I take it axiomatically that, and as reference point, that the great Acharya, like Prabhupada and Bhaktivedanta, they have shown the greatest, they are the most tolerant. I take it by axioma. I feel that I have to take it axiomatically. There's no question about it, because otherwise, if you have any other way, first of all, because I think it's true, not simply because it's just I'm taking it as a otherwise, but even looking from another perspective, you don't have a measure. You don't have a measure. That's one of the main problem, a measure of judging. In order to judge something, you need to judge it against a standard. Now we're talking about tolerance. There has to be a standard, an ideal that we're trying to come close to. If you don't have that I don't think you can actually say anything about anything. About anything. Even to say something is big because it's bigger than something else. Anyway, I don't want to get too technical. But you know, my point is this, that they are, at least that's the way the only way I can see it, that Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta, they are the perfect example of tolerance. That's another thing. Another note, treenad means it is the grass bit, yeah? Treenad means from grass. I don't know if is that okay. I have no problem, but treenad, the tree is the taror. But it's okay. I mean, it's no problem for a tree.
Let's keep it a secret.
It's not. I think it's okay for maybe his mom wanted to call him little grass for whatever reason, because it looked like a. Not now. It doesn't look like a blade of grass now.
He grew bigger than expected.
And maybe when he was younger, it looked like a blade of grass. So that's why his mom called him treenard.
Oh, she's coming on next time. I'll ask her if she can confirm that. Reshma?
I wonder if there's also a kind of personality thing going on here, where some people are able to tolerate some things more than other things and things like that. So that's just one point I want to raise and see what everyone thinks about that. But while I have the mic, it really struck me when treenard, little grass dude, was talking about when he was kind of opening up to Krishna and opening a line of communication, you could say. And then he whacked the dog, which I thought was really funny. And then he said, no, but surely you understand that. But I'm trying, but I won't do it again. And it was almost like, it's so wonderfully accurate in terms of what we all kind of go through in our minds. And it may be that our, relative tolerance at one time may seem like it's, not the perfect way we could be, the most tolerant we could have been, but it's that understanding that this is as much as I could do right now, but I know what I'm aspiring for. And just having that honesty about where we are situated in our spiritual lives, and aspiring for something, but also recognizing where we are, I think is so important when we're discussing topics like this, because it's so easy to think I need to be tolerant and put ourselves in situations like you were saying, Shabhari, where we can't tolerate it, and it's disturbing to us, but in the name of tolerance we just kind of think that we should keep going.
I can't remember whether I must have told this because I told it on different forums, but the famous Guru Kripa story. Have I told that on this before? I don't remember. It's a funny story. He was early on as a Brahmin.
He tells it on himself as well.
He tells it himself, so it's not. He was preaching to some people in India.
From.
Huh?
Say where he's from. Guru Kripa.
Well, Guru Kripa was anyway. He's a famous character in his time.
Very heavy background.
He came from a heavy background, yeah, almost a criminal background, you could say. Anyway, he was trying to make some life members in India. And so he was preaching away. And so these two life members started challenging him, about his ideas and, really kind of giving him the business. And so he began shouting. And so then, just as Jagat was saying earlier, so they said, oh, what kind of sadhu are you? You're not very tolerant. You're not very peaceful. He said, listen, he said, a few months ago, he said, if I would have punched you in the mouth. So they liked his answer so much they became life members, because he was admitting that, okay, I would have punched you in the mouth, but now I'm just shouting a bit. So the process is working. So I always said that was a great example of that principle of tolerance. That that you're able to, learn to respond with more depth of intelligence and realization.
Thank you for sharing that. I was thinking myself recently, but there are so many principles and so many things. I got to the point, and I'll throw it out there, and I don't think it's the only or the correct answer. But for me, it's kind of working a little bit, at least. It seems to me that there's a kind of, could there be some kind of cosmic joke going on, in the sense that really these things are unattainable, but I think, as Reshma alluded to, through desperation trying to reach these ideals, I actually start talking to Krishna. And that's actually the point, to talk to Krishna. Thumbs up, so I'll keep trying to talk to him.
That was really nice. That's like a post-it note kind of thing there.
This is confirmed by Shastra, actually, in this seminal verse, which states that very important verse. I think you might agree with me that Smartavya Satata Vishnu na Smartavya Vishnu Smartavya Najatu Chit Sarva Vidhi Nisheda Syu Etayor Evakinkara. Here this verse says that all the Vidya and Nisheda, the things that you should do and things you should not do, maybe tolerance, titiksha, is one of the, it can go under this category, under things that you should do, should become. All these, so because you mentioned, Ramananda, there are so many things you need to do. You know, this is, and this is basically, this verse covers them all. I think that's the way they phrase. By covering them all, they think everything fall under the category of vidhi or nisheda. Think that you should do, things you should not do. This verse crucially says, as you pointed out, that all the vidya and nisheda, all the things you do, should not do, they are kinkara. They are servants. They are servants of the golden rule. And the golden rule is the smartavya satata Vishnu. Oh yeah, now I remember how it works. Smartavya satata Vishnu, vismartavya najatu chit. That the whole point of rules and regulation, things that you do, also developing tolerance, that you have that Vishnu is to be remembered. Smartavya means to be remembered. And the second rule, which is the same one, is the other way of looking at the same thing. At vismartavya najatu chit, and that Vishnu, vismartavya, should not be remembered, should not be forgotten or not remembered. Najatu chit, at any, never. So so you're right that ultimately all these things, the rules, is that they should bring it to a remembrance of Vishnu. If you're not remembering Vishnu, that these rules are just maybe it's called what is that? In Rupa Goswami says, follow the rules, niyamagraha. Follow the rules for the sake of following rules, not for the sake of remembering Vishnu. I think it's Niyamagraha. Is it called Niyamagraha, Prabhuji? Rupa Vilas Prabhu?
Yeah, just the pronunciation, Niyamagraha and Niyamagraha.
Yeah.
So one is following the rules without any real understanding, and the other one is not following, avoiding following rules. Yeah. Thinking you can do whatever you like.
Actually, it's the same word. Niyama is used there, just like in this verse. Niyama. Niyama agraha means, gra means grasping, grabbing on, literally. That's what graha means, to grab on. It's the same word. And niyama agra, not to grab. Agra is the opposite, not grabbing on to niyama.
Okay. Just a slight tangent from what you were saying, Jagat, is that I'm sure you've seen over the years, many people try to tolerate, but they're not really tolerating. They're just swallowing and artificially tolerating, inverted commas. And then what happens? They flip out and they leave, or they have a major fall down. It's harder to come back. So, and at the same time, you don't want to like, oh, I can't tolerate this, so I'll just do what I want. Obviously, we have to get the balance, and it varies for each person, but you have to be really honest with yourself about, am I actually tolerating this, or am I just gritting my teeth? I mean, a little gritting is good, but not. Again, it's all balance.
If I may say, I see it differently. If I may say, just bear with me, because the recommendation is there. We cannot go away. You cannot, please correct me, phrase it better, because I might not be able to phrase it better. My point is a foundational point here. We cannot deny rules. We need to understand them, implement them. So Shastra recommendation is that you have to be tolerant. Period. Just bear with me. So the question is not if I have to be tolerant, or there are certain times that I should not be tolerant. It's what it means for me to be tolerant. In other words, everything has to be through that. because I don't think you can get away from that. I don't think that's how it works.
I think too, though, what she's
You know what I mean? So yeah, please carry on. Yeah, please, sorry.
I was just going to say that I think what she's talking about is an artificial idea of what tolerance is.
I know what she's talking about.
Yeah, and that's where all these stored up anger and irritation and even heartbreak sometimes manifests due to a false conception of what, as you say, of what tolerance is.
Exactly. This is what I'm trying to understand. We have to understand what tolerance is, not that we have to get away from tolerance and being intolerant.
No. Yeah.
You see what I mean? I'm not contradicting you. I'm just trying to try and understand things properly, because we can't move away from principle. We can't move away from that. These are unnegotiable principle.
Yeah.
And the question, how to understand them, how to implement them, and for us to be functional and to see that they're working for us. And the way we see them working, they provokes us a remembrance of Vishnu. We get closer to Krishna consciousness. Especially our taste for chanting increases. That's, I think, for me, that's the golden rule.
No, that's what Reshma was saying.
Whatever you do, if the end of the day, you wake up in the morning and you feel like chanting, be careful, because you're doing something wrong.
Say that again, Jagat. If you don't feel like it.
Yeah, if you get up in the morning, you feel like chanting, that something is not working, because you should test everything you do against that, because everything we do should increase our taste for chanting. Ultimately, it's about the chanting. Everything we do, everything, even the most looks more far, but we're doing with that in mind. If what we do doesn't bring us or take us away from, removes our taste for chanting Hare Krishna, then that is a very clear signal to me that something is not working there. Some adjustment need to be made.
Excellent point.
Nice point.
It's the yardstick, as they say. Whatever.
I know Bhaktivedanta said something to the effect that one should not try to understand. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but one cannot understand by using the measure of your measuring yardstick of your intelligence. In other words, if you think that with the yardstick of your intellect, you're going to understand, spiritual realization or the depth of some spiritual state of consciousness, it's not going to work that way. It has to be something that you realize through chanting, through revelation.
I didn't understand that properly, Babuji.
Yeah, I didn't express it properly. I'll send you the actual quote later. That's all. I can't remember. It's mostly basically about thinking that through intellect you're going to become a self-realized soul. No, it's not. It's not just through intellect.
It's through your attachment to chanting and
it's through your attraction to chanting, to attraction to Krishna.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. I don't want to get technical. We need to say what we mean by intellect.
Yeah.
Because if you say intellect by Buddha yoga, Krishna is telling us to do Buddha yoga.
Yeah. I'm not denying that.
That's a whole other.
We're gonna take off now. It's nice to meet with you all, and I love this presentation, Ramananda. And I do think you could definitely develop it if you have any attraction to it.
Thank you. Yeah,
I think it's a great way to present philosophy. Sometimes people can hear it better, when it's done that way. I know once in New York, when we had this big temple on 55th Street, they used to have these the plays, and they had this play, and when Prabhupada saw it, he said, "It is better than the book." He said, "It is better than the book." Wow. He loved it. He loved these dramas, and using a kind of cultural presentation to attract people's minds. It's really good. Hare Krishna.
You want to say something? Okay. Ramananda, thank you very much. We're
Thank
at
you.
1:15, and that really was something novel and immensely enjoyable.